What's up everybody, it's Benjamin's Bay here bringing you another LEGO video with today a recolored version of set 6079, the Dark Forest Fortress from the very small Dark Forest subtheme. The original set really appealed to me because it not only captures the classic look of vintage LEGO, but also includes two of my favorite factions, the Dragon Knights and Dark Forestmen. Unfortunately, while the original set is very cool, it is also very expensive, with the current average price being over $525 without shipping and handling. I wasn't willing to pay that much, so I decided to recreate this recolored variant with alternative minifigures for roughly $175 without shipping and handling. It is possible to make it cheaper depending on how much of the vintage look you want to maintain, but I'll touch on that later. First, I'll briefly explain the process in case you want to try it out yourself. I basically started by importing the inventory of the original set into the free and awesome program Brickstore, and that allowed me to see which parts are the most expensive as well as any parts that I may already own. For this set, the most expensive part by far is the raised base plate, with an average price of over $90. You can find it cheaper, but it often means it has significant damage. The raised base plate I used comes from an Extreme Team set and has the exact same dimensions as the original, it just uses a different print. And this one will set you back only $30, so in theory you can get 3 of these for one of the original, and if you cover the Extreme Team version with a ton of green plates as I've done here, I honestly don't think there is that much difference. In fact, it might even be better than the original because you can always switch back to the river pattern. One thing you definitely don't want to do, however, is stack large plates on areas with a lot of studs, because that's going to make it nearly impossible to remove them without damaging the base plate later on. Instead, you want to use the large plates to cover the river where there aren't as many studs, and smaller plates on the top and back so you can easily remove them. Overall though, I'm really surprised this base plate is so cheap, relatively speaking, and I think it's severely underrated, so you may want to try it out. It could also be a great substitute for the Pirate Polyus Pitfall or the Enchanted Island, both of which use this base plate shape as well. Something that is overrated in the set are the minifigures, certainly these 4 with their average value exceeding a whopping $180. So I replaced them and ended up with these 4, which will set you back roughly $35, and that may still seem relatively expensive compared to the more modern minifigures we have today. But we have to keep in mind that I used vintage torsos and face prints because I did not want to deviate too much from the original. You can also swap out the brown heads for blue ones, as those are much cheaper. I do want to point out that I changed the arms here and there, and the Dragon Knights are exactly the same because they're not that expensive. I also removed all the red parts from the Dark Forestmen and their hideouts to really set them apart from the regular Forestmen because in my opinion the original factions appear too similar. Likewise, I changed the flag colors to green and black. You can also go for green and white, which matches nicely with the plumes I give the minifigures, but I think black makes more sense here. And for the record, black plumes are not an option due to their insane price on the aftermarket. Another main change includes the trees, which I changed from brown to black, and I did that for 2 reasons. First of all, the brown corner panels are much more expensive and harder to find than the black ones, which drastically increases the cost for shipping and handling as well. And secondly, I always found it odd that the Dark Forestmen are called Dark Forestmen, yet the forest they live in is lighter than that of the standard Forestmen. Though in my headcanon the main reason they're called Dark Forestmen is because they're willing to go a bit further to achieve their goal of equality, as demonstrated by the skeleton. I also opted for the new reddish-brown Forestman shields, which are a lot cheaper, and I fixed the oddities with the carriage, because if you look at the original, that one was kind of all over the place in terms of the faction it belonged to. It was controlled by Dragon Knights, but one of them carries a Black Knight shield, and the flag colors of red and white on the carriage belong to the Royal Knights. And of course you could argue that the Dragon Knight stole the carriage, but I'd rather just change the parts, because that's the advantage of recreating a set this way. You're not limited to just the parts from the original. Lastly, I updated a few mold types to the newest version because those are always cheaper and easier to get in new condition, which is another big advantage. This build is in great condition because a lot of the pieces were bought new, whereas with a used copy there is always wear, certainly with vintage sets. Despite all the changes, keep in mind that apart from the extra green plate, the build is identical to the original set. I just used different colors and mold types, and that was definitely the goal, make the build cheaper but still maintain roughly the same inventory, so that theoretically you can build one of the alternate builds without the need for additional parts. If you want to make the build cheaper, there are various options. You can update the rest of the mold types to the newest version. You can also change the old grey and old brown to the newer shades, and you can tinker with the minifigures a bit. If you like it as it is, you can find the part list for free via the link in the description below. As for the instructions, you can use the ones from the original set, you'll just have to pay attention to the color changes. I did add a studio file with a recommended setup for the use of green plates on the raised base plate because as I said, you don't want to stack large plates on areas with a lot of studs. So that's it for now. Feel free to let me know what you think about this build and the minifigures. I want to thank you for watching and hope to see you next time when a new idea washes you up on the shore of a golden beach.